50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Hi, my name is Nacho, welcome back to the channel. And if I'm being honest with you, I wasn't gonna do a video on Wendy and the guy with green tights because just after the trailer and after getting spoiled by some YouTubers, I realized that it wasn't gonna be a movie I was going to enjoy. It's not a mystery that Disney as a company suffered a stroke not long ago and forgot that these movies were already made rather well decades ago, but they've decided to remake them regardless with the intent to please the known to be unpleasable modern audience and try to milk some of that precious nostalgia money. But per request of my lovely subscribers, I decided to bite the bullet and sat through it anyways. And because I'm someone who grew up with the original animated flick and the legendary spin-off that was Hook, that features some of the best actors of their generation, with Robin Williams as Peter Pan, Dustin Hoffman as Hook, Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell, Bob Hoskins as Smee, Maggie Smith as Wendy, and directed by Steven Spielberg. There were other ones made, but let's just forget about those. So after watching the last remake, the best way I can describe my experience is like being someone whose gateway drug was pure uncut Colombian cocaine and is suddenly forced to consume corner-bought crack, or someone who's only drank Macallan 1926 throughout their life and now has to drink a whole Bud Light because someone is pointing a gun at them. But let me explain what I mean by this. The diverse flying boy and Wendy begins introducing the three siblings playing with swords, but this time the first thing I notice is that the loving, caring and protective character that was Wendy in the original is replaced by a very arrogant modern version that within minutes of the movie commencing throws her brothers under the bus to save herself and talks back to her mother without remorse. She's being sent to boarding school to become a lady and she doesn't want to go because she doesn't want things to change or to grow up. This prompts the appearance of Tinkerbell, who is no longer a bioluminescent fairy, but instead, and I'm going to hell for this, absorbs light more efficiently. And alongside comes a stone-faced Peter Pan. Now in my video about race-swapping redheads, I briefly touched on this version of Peter Pan, but I didn't really dwell much on it because I didn't believe that you could fuck up Peter Pan. It's been done multiple times and every time it's been relatively good. It's one of those characters that as long as you're a kid, or a kid at heart, you nailed it every time. But boy was I wrong. I wanted to punch my monitor every time this kid came into focus in order to crack the screen so I could see a different facial expression coming out from his mug. This poor kid that got dragged into this woke-ass film to play the most lively kid in the history of literature has as much charisma in him as a goldfish. There's no need for the script to reduce him to a side character in his own movie, cause he does that himself perfectly. Compare him with Robin Williams at the time and you'll understand why the severity of my initial analogy. However, the dullness of this movie doesn't end there.
Seriously?
In 1991, this is what Neverland looked like in the movie Hook, like a place made by the imagination of a child, a land full of wonders and adventures. And this is Neverland now.
Neverland!
It's a rock.
This is what the Lost Boys base looked like back then. And this is what it looks now.
Hi, Wendy.
It looks like sadness.
This makes me feel like that vending machine that has a sign that reads, "The light inside is broken, but I still work." Why did everything feel better back then? Oh wait, I guess I did grow up. Damn it. The practical sets, Captain Hook's ship, everything feels so much more alive and with passion in it despite the CGI being shit. Although the new one doesn't really do it any better. Even the mermaids look better. Look at that, Disney, you got it right 31 years ago. And do you know also why that movie was better? Because in 1991, not a single kid noticed or cared that this movie had horse. After they get to Neverland, Captain Hook kidnaps Wendy's brothers after blowing them up with a direct impact of a cannonball. And she washes ashore and is found by girl boss Tiger Lily and the Lost Boys.
Lost Boys.
Every last one of us.
But you're not all boys.
So?
Then why would you fucking call yourself the Lost Boys?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Could it be because that's a residual of the original story that the author gave a very good reason why they're called the Lost Boys and these stupid ass writers couldn't come up with a new name that doesn't sound absolutely fucking ridiculous? The Lost Gang, the Lost They Them, the Lost Individuals, the... Why couldn't there be girls in there? Oh, I don't know. Boy Scouts. Where does it say that it can't be girls in there? In the name. Boy Scouts. That's why Girl Scouts exist. You fuck. When the apocalypse comes and I have to explain a bunch of children sitting in a circle what brought about the end of times, I'm going to start with us shooting Harambe and then letting people choose their fucking pronouns. In the off chance you didn't know, the author of Peter Pan, James Barrie, explains that the Lost Boys are kids that fell off their prams while their nurses were looking away, and after 7 days they are taken to Neverland to be with Peter Pan. Girls, however, are too clever to fall off their prams, that's why there are no lost girls. But thank you Disney for bringing inclusivity into the mix and making girls as dumb as boys. Progress! Before I go into the main ingredient of this leftover tuna sandwich, I also want to note how boring these kids are. Obviously it's not their fault because the script is shit and they are here to fill some tick boxes, but even the original Lost Boys had an incredible personality to them, and in Hook, who can forget about Rufio or Thoughtbot? Those are kids who lived up to the fantasy and played it extremely well. The new Lost Boys and girls are unfortunately very forgettable, much like the rest of this movie. The only thing I like about the new one is the casting of Noah Matthews, who is a kid who has Down syndrome, who also happens to be a boy, so it fits, and the kid played a good part. He actually did a good job, so good on him. That is good inclusivity. And for a bit of trivia, in the original tale, Peter Pan kills the Lost Boys that grew up. Yeah. Grim, isn't it?
That's pretty dark, yeah. That's dark. Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Hook takes the kids to Skull Rock to have them executed, chains them to a rock, and plank-faced Pan sneaks in disguise to start fighting him. And the only time I laughed during this dreadful movie was when the girls failed to open the lock by trying to hit it with a sword, very smart, until Tinkerbell flies over and picks the lock. wait. The black girl is the one that cracks the fucking lock? No, man, no.
That was bad form.
Yeah.
I believe that nitpicking the fight scenes in this movie is not really that important, being that it's kids fighting grown-ass men. So objectively they would have been sliced in half 9 times out of 10. With that in mind, the sword play is rather good, except when it comes to Wendy. Since it's obvious that the protagonist of the story is her, and the whole movie works its way to make Peter a sad version of himself, going as far as killing him at one point, Wendy is made to be the authority figure that takes over Neverland. Just after rescuing the boys from Hook, there's a whole segment where Wendy lectures Peter about him being wrong, thinking he can defeat Hook on his own, after slapping him across the face. And everyone sides with her, because God forbid we go against the girl who's been here for a full 10 minutes. Even after they are kidnapped by Hook again, and Wendy volunteers to die instead of her brothers, and Peter is healed from his fatal wound by Tiger Lily, who is the one that comes and saves the day? If you guess Wendy, then you are correct. And here's where I believe that Disney truly missed the mark with this one. In the old movies, there was always a lesson at the end. In Hook, there's a huge message on how family is important, as well as knowing who you are and fighting for the ones you care. In the new Captain Wendy, her happy thought that allowed her to fly and basically become Peter Pan to fight off the pirates was her growing up, going to boarding school, becoming a successful writer, and dying on her couch, alone. So pretty much the same thing she was going to do at the beginning of the film. Even at the end when she rescues the Lost Boys, she basically drops them on her parents to take care of them, then goes up the roof when she finds Peter and talks about what an adventure it would be to grow up. To which Peter just flies back to his ship, we all have a big cry, and he returns to Neverland to fight Hook till the end of times. So we basically go back to the beginning of the film. It does hold a similar vibe to the 1991 where Wendy is celebrated at the beginning of the film because of the work she did with orphans, but that's me stretching it in order to find a comparison or even a connection of why the remake ended like this. If there's anything good to say about Wendy and the is that Blaw's performance is really good for this version of Hook. Him being a veteran actor, I don't find that strange, and you can tell he has fun with the role. However, I can't stop comparing him with Dustin Hoffman's Hook, who is clearly defined as a bad guy throughout the whole movie, even to the last moment when he tries to kill Peter and he's eventually defeated. Lost Hook is much more gloomy, he's resentful, he's angry, which can be a reflection of the idea of growing up from the eyes of a kid, so they got that right at least. But we also get a huge exposition on how Peter betrayed his friendship and cast him away, ultimately forcing him to become Hook, which not only humanizes him, the bad guy, it also paints Peter in a much darker light, no pun intended, because he comes out as a hypocrite at the end of the movie when he's able to come back to the fight, not by his own doing because he's Peter Pan, but because he had help from his friends. Mainly Tiger Lily, the Deus Girl Machina of this movie, to which Law rightfully replies with,
"Just a little help from my friends."
You dare to speak to me of friends?
It's a weird trend that Disney has with their remakes, casting very talented and charismatic actors to play villains and giving them backstories that pretty much make them almost likable. I mean, I almost started rooting for Hook at one point when we told the story about his mother in a movie called Peter Pan and Wendy. I also agree with casting a Native American actress to play a Cree character, despite Tiger Lily just being another girl boss to support Wendy, while also not being very developed as a character, and it wasn't clear to me if the kids understood her when she spoke in Cree, but thank God for subtitles, I guess. The original Peter Pan did portray Native Americans in a very racist way, but that was America in the 1950s. They had a whole bunch of that going on at the time. But if there's one sin the movie Wendy and Company is guilty of, outside the identity politics, and the forced inclusivity, and the girl power moments, and the stone-faced Peter Pan, is that it's extremely fucking boring. And I'm not the only one who thinks that way. As a closing thought, I felt like the Flying Kids movie that features Wendy is a very brave, stunning, diverse, and empowered movie that proudly attempts to rewrite almost everything Disney got right the first time around. I hate it. But if you watched this far into the video, leave us a like, let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite movie from the time where Disney used to make good movies. God, that feels like so long ago. But also Treasure Planet. And as always, I've been Nacho. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.